That little voice that you so often hear in your head, is it intuition or is it critter brain? Let's find out. Hey dear, it's Tanya. Welcome to my channel. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. That little voice that we all hear, sometimes more often, sometimes less often. But that little voice that always knows best, that tells us what to do, what not to do, why not to do something, excuses, or how to do something because you want to find a way when there is a solution in need. Yes, that little voice. We have a lot of different names for it. And there's a lot of different situations in which this little voice can come talk to you. Now, the reason why I did this video, why I'm doing this now, is because it is so important to know the distinction, the differentiation between, is it good for me to listen to it, or is it actually trying to stop me because of a different reason that is not good for me and I'm not supposed to listen to it. So let's dive deep into that. In the next few minutes, you will learn how to differentiate between these two. You will learn how to recognize when it's intuition and when it's the critter brain talking to you. And most importantly, you will know which type of your inner voice to listen to and when not to. So let's take a look at the intuition first. By definition, intuition means the ability to understand something instinctively without the need to consciously rationalize or reason something. Basically, I'm gonna tell you first, if you are religious, you could call that God, right? If you are more on the spiritual side, you would maybe call it universe, the spirit, the angels, anything in that realm. And if you are not religious, not spiritual, no judgment here, respect everybody, then you would probably want to think about it as your higher self, your inner self. If you want, you could also think of it as, your inner guide, maybe your inner child even, who knows everything, or your future self, maybe even one of your past members of your family, past relatives that are trying to guide you and help you to move forward in life and with your goals. Now that's for the intuition. When it comes to the critter brain, interestingly enough, the definition says that it's also our survival instinct, but this part is trying to keep us safe. It is part of the brain. We're talking about neurology and actually physiology. This has been proven decades ago, that we have three parts of the brain, and one part of the brain is the critter brain, which is the part of the brain that is always trying to keep us safe. And whatever is new is dangerous. So if something is new, you're gonna be like, don't do it. No, it's dangerous. I don't think so. You shouldn't. And if our ancestors long time ago would always listen to that part of the brain, to the critter brain, then nowadays we'd still live in caves. Luckily, they were relying, or they were listening to their intuition as well. And today we have beautiful places to live in and amazing technology, so you can watch me through your screen over couple of thousands of kilometers or miles if you prefer. And that's a miracle, and that's a wonder of the new century, right? So how do you differentiate? I'm gonna tell you just a very simple method, and you're gonna love it. In my previous video, I shared with you 7 practical steps on how to go from the tiny little business idea to the first money-making experience. These are really practical steps. They're wonderful. If you haven't seen them, if you check them out here, I'll put the link in the description below as well. And I want to say that in these practical steps, there's a lot of opportunities to put the intuition into play, to let it help you in your decision-making process. So this is what also inspired me to do this video, because sometimes we're gonna go into overthinking where we should actually trust it. But it's not as easier said than done. Although if you know how, like I'm gonna share with you right now, then it's much easier. Let's go. And I'm gonna explain it to you through an example. In fact, I'm gonna ask you to choose your own example. Usually, it's a decision that you need to make, either A or B. You have 2 options, you need to choose one, right? Do you have an idea? Do you have an example for you? All right, good. Okay, perfect. Now, think about option A and think about option B. One of these options feels light, feels easy, bright, simple, natural. It just feels right. It just feels like it fits, right? Like it's smooth and even if an obstacle might show up, you will know how to deal with it. You will cross that bridge when you get there, as the saying goes. So it just feels closer to you. It feels more familiar and, like I said before, natural. Well, that is your intuition pulling you to move forward. That's the intuition part. That's the good part. That's where you should go. On the other hand, the other option usually feels heavy, darker, more complicated, and it's an excuse or like an obstacle after an obstacle after an obstacle. It just doesn't feel natural. It doesn't sit right. It doesn't fit. You have a solution, but then already you feel in your head it's gonna be another problem and another problem, and it just doesn't represent any joy at all whatsoever. Whereas, so that's the creator brain, right? That's the part where you're like, it feels heavy, it feels bad. Whereas on the other hand, it's joyful and natural and easy. So that's the main part. Sometimes it's not about choices A or B. It's not about making a decision, choosing between two. Sometimes intuition shows up through an impulse. You have a thought or you have a feeling that the thought accompanies, or vice versa, right? Maybe sometimes you're gonna have a thought that feeling accompanies. And that thought might be, for example, this is not good for me if it's for food. Or I think I should take this drink or whatever. I think I should take this direction when I'm driving. I think I should call this potential client. I think I should go into this direction, whatever that is. If that shows up, even when, and especially when you're not thinking about making a decision, that's your intuitive impulse. That's where you should really feel into it, connect to it. And the more you start rationalizing, the more you start thinking about pros and cons, the more you're gonna bring your critter brain, bring the overthinking part, and obviously it's gonna take over because it's new, you have never done this, you should not be doing this, it's risky, blah 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 blah. So usually the first impulse, the first answer is the right one, because that's your intuitive, instinctive, higher self response. Got that? All right, now let's take a look at a few examples that I have for you. The first one is me in the hospital a few years ago, right after I gave birth to our baby Sia at 25 weeks, and I was just few hours after the emergency C-section, maybe the 10, 12 hours after, when I was still a little bit under anesthesia, I guess. I mean, not the epidural and everything that they pumped me with. So what happened is that they offered me naproxen. That's a simple NSAID, basically non-steroid anti-inflammatory drug. I believe that's the acronym that stands for. They said that's the typical, you need to take that because, well, you just had a surgery. And my intuition said, yeah, that's not good for you. You shouldn't take that. And I almost felt like in my childhood, I had a situation where I had a reaction to one of these type of drugs, specifically this one, naproxen, but I couldn't pinpoint it. And at one point I did ask my mom if there was something, and she couldn't remember. So the doctors insisted. They said every woman who goes through a cesarean, a C-section, they have to take that, and I took it. Well, only 10 days later, I'm not kidding, 10 days later, I was back at the ER because I had a perforated stomach. I had a bleeding stomach ulcer that was absolutely 100% caused by this drug. And the pharmacist actually couldn't believe that 10 days could already do that. Usually it takes about a few months, if not a year, until this shows up. But I'm not used to medication, so here you go. I didn't listen to intuition. I absolutely don't want you to go through that. Now, that is a medical example. It could be, yes, it could be absolutely also with business. Of course, I want you to use this 100% in your business as well, and listen to it when intuitive impulses come to you. And the second example I'm gonna give it to in my business, and that was basically one of our businesses when we were presented the opportunity to be the official distributor in Canada for that company that's American. My husband was a bit reluctant, was hesitant, and I had this intuitive conviction that it's gonna be good. It's worth to take a risk. It's gonna be a successful experience. And so Of course, my husband is a rational, man. He's an engineer. He needs to have proofs and black and white and numbers needs to match and etc. And you know what I'm talking about. Very by the book person. I am more intuitive. So I explained it to him and I said, listen, we have less to lose than to gain. Why don't we try? Well, we're heading to 7 figures. So obviously in that instance, it was absolutely good that I did listen to intuition. And that is what I wish for you. That is what I desire. If you want something, go for it. And you don't always know what is gonna come from one little tiny decision when you go to an event where you don't really feel like, and that's your creative brain probably, but you say, yes, I'm gonna go because you intuitively feel that there's probably gonna be something. You might meet someone or you might get an idea and that's gonna later on bring you to success. Or on the other hand, if you feel like I shouldn't go there and it's just like not really connected to a specific fear, then it's probably your intuition. It's not like I'm nervous or something. It's just like, I don't feel I should do that. Maybe you are avoiding a potential accident. Who knows? That inner guide, that higher self, that God, universe, spirit, like I said, whatever you want to call it, it knows. So I'm inviting you, I'm putting it on your heart, play with it, learn how to differentiate between intuition and creative brain or your fear or your little devil voice if you want, and just hone that skill. Just like confidence is a skill that you practice, just like your heart is a muscle that you train. This is the same with intuition. You hone it, you practice it, you train it, you get better every day, and there's no end. And that's the fun part of it. Have fun. Thanks for watching. I think it would be pretty cool if you subscribe. Also, my daughter Sia gets a tickle every time someone likes a video. So if you love babies, well, you know what to do.